Family, as we consider this important topic of grief, we recognize that we grieve for many different reasons. Obviously, the most common reason for grief is that of the death of someone that we love. But we also grieve because sometimes we make choices that bring about grief in our lives, and we grieve the choices that we've made. An example of this can be found in 2 Samuel chapter 11 and chapter 12. We're most familiar with the story of David committing adultery with Bathsheba, and then his subsequent conspiracy to set up her husband and have him killed. What we also recognize in 2 Samuel chapter 12 is that sometimes we don't always see ourselves the way we really are. Nathan the prophet went to David and told him the story of a man with a little ewe lamb and how he had been violated, and how another traveler, who was a rich man, came and took advantage of this poor man and took this lamb. David said, "The man must die." As a matter of fact, he said, "He shall surely die." Nathan said to David, 2 Samuel 12, verse number 7, "You are the man." It's interesting that we don't see ourselves, and yet we are keenly aware of what someone else is doing. David could see easily the violation in this story, this parable, or this analogy that Nathan gave him, not realizing that it spoke about him. Christians do that all the time, can see so clearly what's wrong with someone else, but have not the best eyesight when it comes to seeing themselves. We have to think about some things as it relates to how we grieve these bad choices. Number one, we have to be careful about wanting justice for everyone else and yet wanting mercy for ourselves. Did you notice that when Nathan shared the story with David, David said the man should die? That's justice. Not only did David think the man should die, but he said the man should restore fourfold that which he had taken. So he wanted death and restitution as a means of justice. But then when Nathan revealed to David that he was the man, David went into mourning and begged for the mercy of God. How often have you done that, where you want someone else to be subjected to God's justice, but then you plead for mercy for yourself? We have to also recognize that our choices bring about consequences. As a result of this, David's son would get sick, and the Bible teaches us in the latter part of 2 Samuel chapter 12, in verse number 16, that David begged God for the life of the child. He fasted, he prayed, and yet it would not be so. The child's life would not be spared. Which brings us to our third and most important principle that we have to understand about our bad choices, that sometimes what we do affects other people. So we must not only be careful about seeking mercy when we want others to have justice, and also about thinking of consequences, but our consequences affect other people. And we need to think how we impact others with the choices that we make. We all make mistakes, and in the times that we make mistakes, let's be like David and acknowledge them and say, "Lord, I was wrong." But let's try to prevent grieving and mourning bad choices by thinking through those things and making better choices. Let us also be concerned about the fact that God has given us such a limited time here on this earth Let's live life to the fullest. Let's learn. Let's be better. And let's not hurt others because of our bad choices. That not only cause us to grieve and mourn, but might also cause others some grief and some mourning. This has been another installment of A Few Minutes with the Minister. Think about your choices. They have consequences, and they might affect someone else.